Hi everybody, my name is Dr. Brian Price. I'm the Executive Director of the Buccino Leadership Institute here at Seton Hall. And I'm here to talk to you today about this really new, interesting organization that we have here at Seton Hall that began in 2018. So first, a little bit of background about myself. I was born and bred in New Jersey. I went to Manasquan High School, and then I was a three-sport athlete there, went on to go play baseball at the U.S. Military Academy. And then I spent the next 20 years as a U.S. Army officer, retiring as a lieutenant colonel in 2018. But during my time in the Army, I think I've had a lot of different experiences that are illustrative of the type of eclectic experiences we want our students to have. And so I have experiences both in the military. I was a helicopter pilot. I flew combat helicopters in Iraq and Afghanistan. And then for the second half of my career, the Army sent me to Stanford University to get a PhD in political science. And I spent the second half of my career teaching at the United States Military Academy. While there, I ran a place called the Combating Terrorism Center, which had a really unique mission of producing research about counterterrorism, teaching cadets, but also briefing the nation's most senior leaders. So I've had a lot of different experiences and exposure to senior leaders, to include opportunities to brief the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of the Army, two different CIA directors, members of the FBI, so on and so forth. So, but also my experiences are in the sports world. And I was not only a player at West Point, but I was also, when I came back as a faculty member, able to be an assistant coach on the baseball team there as well. So I've seen kind of leadership development in these unique categories of the military, in the sports world, in the government, and then in academia. And so I was really pumped to come back to New Jersey after I retired from the military, and I'm so pumped to be here at Seton Hall University. So let me tell you a little bit about what this program is. It's one of the most unique programs in the country when it comes to leadership development. Why? There's a number of reasons, but one is the fact that this is a comprehensive 4-year program for competitively selected undergraduates. What that means is at other colleges you might take a class in leadership, or you might even have a full year of leadership. Here I see students, obviously we select students coming in, so I see you essentially from your first day on campus all the way through graduation. We'll be coming up to our third year here. We have a freshman class and a sophomore class, and I'll talk about those in a second. But that's one of the most unique aspects is it's comprehensive and it's 4 years. The second part is it's interdisciplinary. You'll notice that a lot of leadership programs appear in the business schools around the country. Our program has students from all across the university. We have students from 33 different majors and 6 of the 7 colleges here at Seton Hall University. And so I think those components really kind of make us stand out to other programs. Our mission is clear. We want to create the most effective leadership development program in the country for undergraduates, and we're well on our way. All right, one thing you might not know about us is that for the past 5 years in a row, HR.com presents these things called the LEAD Awards. And so Seton Hall's program, our certificate program, has been ranked #1 in the country for the past 5 years. A pretty awesome accomplishment. So let's talk about who our students are. Our students come from, as I mentioned, 6 of the 7 colleges here at Seton Hall. We have 159 total students at the moment. We bring in around 80 students per class. And again, a wide array of majors in our program. You can see the breakdown on this chart. About half of our students come from the College of Arts and Sciences and the School of Business, and then the other half comes from College of Nursing, Education and Human Services, Diplomacy and International Relations, as well as Communication and the Arts. So again, once again, we bring in about 80 students per year. Our students, this is an interesting slide that kind of denotes the types of students that we're bringing in. We bring in a lot of high caliber talent. And you'll also notice some interesting facts here too, two to point out. One is we are above the university's average when it comes to out-of-state students. So we have leadership students that come from all across the country, all the way from Alaska to California, all the way to the East Coast. The second one is look at the large number of women that we have in our program. Over 2/3 of our students in our program are women, and so we're really proud of that fact. When the university was doing market research for this type of institute, you can take a look at some of the other high-quality schools that we benchmarked out of. And as I mentioned on this axis, you see the x-axis, the horizontal axis on the left-hand side that says is the experience focused versus comprehensive. And then the north-south axis, the y-axis says is the opportunity selective or open. What we found is that most colleges only have their leadership programs in their business school or in their MBA programs. And so we wanted to open this up, as I mentioned, to all students at Seton Hall University. So we wanted that interdisciplinary flavor. The second thing is we just did not want one particular experience. We want this to be a comprehensive experience. We kind of refer to it as cradle to grave. So I get a chance and the other associate directors get a chance to see you develop from the first day on campus until you are graduating in the Prudential Center. So these are things that are, I think, make us unique and stand out. I talked about our comprehensive nature. I talked about our interdisciplinary nature. It's experiential. This is not a type of leadership experience where you're going to just be in a classroom writing papers. While we do have classroom time, the bulk of the experiences that our students get are experiencing leadership. One of our associate directors, Michael Reuter, has a great phrase that he says, you don't learn how to drive a car by reading the driver's manual. You have to get out there and drive. And so what we want our students to do is we're going to give you some of the basic foundational understanding of leadership, but then we're going to give you opportunities and experiences to actually practice it yourself with your peers, which peer leadership, as you well know, is probably the hardest type of leadership to properly execute. I'll talk about the nuanced nature here in a second, but that's another facet of the program which is really cool. So in the first 2 years, you're going to learn about a foundational understanding of leadership. We have associate directors in each of those 6 colleges that I mentioned that are subject matter experts and leaders in their respective fields. And so you not only get a fantastic interdisciplinary foundation, but you also have the ability to tap into the expertise of associate directors that are in your chosen profession. We have also a ton of touch points. The fact that we have a class every single Friday for your entire time at Seton Hall means that unless you play a Division I sport for the Pirates, there's probably no other faculty member at Seton Hall University that's going to have as many touch points as I and the associate directors will with your student. So again, it's cradle to grave. I see you every single week, and it's fun to watch that evolution take place. And finally, it's feedback. So we not just give students these opportunities, but it's the feedback that they get that really differentiates our program. One is they get peer feedback, so they get to hear what their peers feel about them. 2, they get feedback from myself or their associate director. Did you know that every single one of our leadership students gets assigned a ICF certified leadership coach? So these are individuals, and I'll talk about the program here in detail later, but every one of our students gets a professional leadership coach, which is very unique. The only other institution that's currently doing that right now is Rice University down in Texas. You also have the ability to take a number of different professional leadership assessments. I'll go into detail about those. And the cool part, you also get audio-visual. So like my phrase is, we kind of develop people to be leaders almost like the athletic department develops athletes in order to be at the top of their game. So this is the comprehensive program that I talked about. You'll notice that there are, it's 4 years. You'll notice that the first 2 years, if you look at that graph on the bottom right-hand side, you'll see that's the time spent at different places. So the bulk of your freshman year is going to be spent in an interdisciplinary fashion. Most of that time is with myself, and you'll see a little smidge of time with the associate director in your particular cohort. That starts to inverse, though, the older you get at the university. So you'll notice that our seniors, we don't have any seniors in the program right now, but once they do become seniors, they're going to spend a predominant amount of time with their associate director and less time with myself. And that was done on purpose. Because while I feel I'm highly qualified to give you a universal understanding of leadership, I don't necessarily know what it's like to be a leader in the nursing field right now. I don't know what it's like to be a leader in the STEM fields, for example. And so the reason why we have this kind of time split is so that as you get closer to graduating and joining the workforce, you're going to be spending more time with subject matter experts that understand leadership in your field. You'll notice that we have different themes. The freshman year's theme is all about leading yourself. We say that you can't lead others until you can lead yourself. And we focus a lot on these 7 pillars. You can go to our website and take a look at those. I'll talk about those in the next slide. And the sophomore year is all about leading others. And so you'll be exposed to organizational concepts like culture, negotiating, organizational behavior, motivation, power, and influence. And then in years 3, 4, we call those leading in the discipline. And those are going to be nuanced and industry-specific leadership development that you'll get to make sure that you have a leg up on your competition when you graduate. So this is how we're broken down. You'll notice that each of the colleges that are participating at Seton Hall University have a specific pillar that they are the steward of. So you'll notice from ceaselessness all the way down to courageous communication, we have 6 of the 7 colleges represented. The one pillar that we don't have a school for at the moment is civic engagement, but we kind of collectively take on that task. You'll also notice that all of these schools have a specific associate director that's a subject matter expert in that field that helps the institute provide that expertise to its students. And you'll notice that with the exception of the business school, which is Michael Reuter up top, Michael Reuter is a full-time associate director. The others have significant leadership duties at the Seton Hall University, and so you'll notice that they have other jobs that are here as well, but they are leaders at the university. Okay, I mentioned this coaching aspect, and again, the only other college that I know that's doing this in mass is Rice University. And so that's actually where we got the idea from. So it's a fantastic organization down there called the Door Institute for New Leaders. And so we wanted to model that for our students. So what we did was we handpicked 14 professional ICF certified coaches that are in the New York, New Jersey area. And what these folks normally do is they are providing executive leadership coaching to C-suite and CEOs across the river in Manhattan. But they believe so much in our mission that they come across, onto our campus, and they provide up to 5 individual sessions, one-on-one sessions with a particular student to make sure that they can grow their leadership competencies. Fantastic program. That program, we were just in Forbes magazine, by the way. Second thing is our students take these things called professional assessments. So these are all fantastic tools to help you understand your strengths and your weaknesses. Freshman year, when you walk in, you'll take the Myers-Briggs type indicator, a personality test. Then you'll take an interesting assessment called the EQI 2.0, which gauges your emotional intelligence. Sophomore year, you'll take a DISC behavioral analysis. Junior year, you take StrengthsFinder. And then because we want to measure, we're not just about throwing things out there. We want to measure your growth as a leader. We're going to reissue or re-administer the EQI 2.0 emotional intelligence assessment in the senior year to see how much growth did you have. And my joke is that if I want to keep my job, there better be some growth in between freshman and senior year. But these are industry standard assessments, and our students are fantastically lucky to take those. We also get outside of the campus. As you well know, one of the great aspects of Seton Hall University is our proximity to the greatest city on earth. And so because that first year's theme is all about leading yourself, what better place to learn about interdisciplinary learning about yourself and then the 9/11 Museum and Memorial in downtown Manhattan. And so this is a somber trip, but boy, is it a fantastic opportunity for these students to reflect on what it means to be a leader. We get a personalized tour while we're there about all these different leaders that popped up that day to help out, from your first responders to nurses to business folks to teachers. And it's a really, really impactful experience for our students in their freshman year. In their sophomore year, we had an overnight trip. We took all of our students, again, trying to find some interdisciplinary places to go. We brought all of our students out to Gettysburg to learn the lessons of leadership out there. And we spent the entire day. We had a personalized tour again. And our very own Vice President, Matthew Borwick, is also a super Civil War nerd. So he accompanied us and told some fantastic stories to our students. Additionally, I talked about the fact that we give all of our students some unique experiential opportunities to lead. And so this is one of our coolest ones. This is our Seton Hall Undergraduate Leaders podcast. So starting last year in November, every single week that the school has been in operation, we have produced a weekly podcast. Now you'll see a lot of pictures on me in this slide. I got to update this because while I did a lot of the interviews the first year, all of the interviews. It is 100% completely run by students right now. And the only thing I did last year was interview a couple folks. But I have a student chief engineer. I have a student that does background research. We have students now that do all the interviews, multiple students. A student that is responsible for distribution on the business side. I have a student responsible for the marketing aspect of it. So this is 100% student run. And oh, by the way, that was freshmen doing this last year. Now we have a team of freshmen and sophomores, but I really highly recommend you take a look at where you get your podcasts. Seton Hall Undergraduate Leaders Podcast. I think you'll find it's a fantastic leadership opportunity for our folks. That podcast is geared specifically for giving advice to young leaders in a variety of different fields. And it's made by students for students. I think you'll get a kick out of it. The other kind of component that I think is really cool that we do is this crazy idea we had last year called interdisciplinary team projects. And so after the first semester, we had a lot of students, I get feedback from students. I seek it. And then we act on it. And one of the recommendations that students had was they wanted more experiential opportunities and they wanted more interdisciplinary opportunities as well. And so we came up with this idea last spring of interdisciplinary team projects. And so we take our 80 students, we split them up into 8 teams of about 10 students each, and we made sure that those teams are purely interdisciplinary. So that if you have so one team would consist of, say, 2 business students, 2 arts and science students, 1 diplomat, 1 engineer, 1 nurse, 1 educator. And so then we gave them 3 menu options to do a semester-long project that at the end was a deliverable that they gave in front of the provost and the deans of the colleges as well as all of their classmates. And so those 3 menu items last year were things like, can you create a professional recruiting video for our institute? Nothing existed like that. The second one was, what does a mentorship program look like for our institute? Mentorship program including both upper and underclassmen, but also including junior alumni and CEOs and professionals in your field. And then the last one was the last project. So the first was video, second one was the mentorship, and the third one was how do we become a leader in undergraduate leadership development utilizing online platforms. And so that was another really interesting project. So what we did was we gathered these folks together in their first session. We put them together in this market research center. So this market research center is it's used in the business school for focus groups and marketing. What they do is you have 2 rooms. You can see that lit up room there in the foreground. I'm sorry, I guess it would be the background. Well, it says Market Research Center. That's where the students are. That's a conference room, normal conference rooms, got whiteboards, table, the whole 9 yards. But then there's a double pane glass, and on the other side, you can see me standing there in the dark. That's the control room. All of the audio and visuals piped into that control room, and we had the capability of recording it. So when we first saw this, as I mentioned, it's used for advertising and marketing focus groups. Well, we don't have any focus groups. What we wanted to do is use it as a leadership laboratory. And so what we did was we made every one of those teams go into that room for their first session. And in that first session, they had to come up with 3 things. They had to come up with who was the team leader, which was absolutely fascinating. It was like the best reality TV. Number 2 was what was the project menu that they were going to select for that semester. And that was also interesting in terms of the decision making there. And then I threw a red herring out there of what was their team name to see if they would spend an inordinate amount of time focusing on whether they call themselves the Sharks or the Jets. So we did this for every single group, and then we were able to give them fantastic feedback on this. So let me tell you one story of the impact of this type of feedback. So we have one of our students, Anne Marie Ryan, who is a nursing sophomore at this point, but last year she was a freshman. And so she was in the IDT, the interdisciplinary team that I was mentoring. And by the way, the mentoring component was me sitting in the back and taking notes. I did not facilitate. I did not participate. It's all student run because we wanted to see how do they lead themselves. And so what we did was after the first session that was filmed, we shared that film with the students. And then we met one-on-one with them to discuss some feedback from that. And so with Anne Marie, I noticed that she didn't say pretty much anything for the entire hour that her team met. And so I had this whole script prepared about the importance of engaging, and it's okay to be a quiet leader, but you have to pick your spots and you have to contribute. And so when I met with her one-on-one, before I could get any words out, I just said, how do you think you did on that film? And she just opened up and said, look, I've been told in the past that I need to participate more by previous teachers, whether that was in middle school or in high school. And she said that, she'd always been told that she looks disengaged in those group types of settings. But it wasn't until she saw the film and she saw with her own eyes where she said, that's not who I want to be, and that's not the leader who I want to be. And so my job was easy. I didn't have to say anything because she came up with all that on her own from just watching the film. So fast forward to the end of the semester. The students present at the end of the semester to the provost and the deans, did a fantastic job. And then I asked the students for their own peer feedback to rate each other. And I asked them on a scale of 1 to 10 to rank order their classmates in order of impact and lack of impact. And I also, because you could have a team of all-stars, I also had them evaluate them from 1 to 10. So you could have a team of all-stars and 9 of them you scored a 9. But what was really interesting is when I gathered my team's feedback scores, Anne-Marie Ryan was tied for the top score, and she was not the team leader. So you talk about someone that had changed her behavior based off of the feedback that this one film gave her. And so fast forward to this year, how do we improve it 2.0? Well, guess what? In the fall, we asked all of our students to, one of the feedbacks we got from the students was they wanted more agency over the projects that they were going to select, and they wanted more agency of who was on their team. I said, okay, well, in the fall, I allowed all of our sophomore students, if they wanted to, it's voluntary, to pitch an idea to the entire class for their spring project. And I bracketed it so that the projects were surrounded by how can you improve Seton Hall or the surrounding community? So you could do a wide range of functions. You could do a service-based project. You could help out admissions, do something. You could work on, a voter registration. There's a number of different things. And so we had 12 students show interest of the 80 in our sophomore class. And in the fall, we had them pitch almost like a la Shark Tank style to the entire class. And after everybody had Q&A, we voted at the end as a family. So every student and every associate director got a chance to vote, and we selected 7 what we call CEOs from that. So I told you about the different personal assessments that I mentioned earlier. Another interesting assignment that we gave students was we had everybody produce a professional personal branding video. So we gave them 2 minutes. There's a great database that we got from the Seton Hall Career Center called Big Interview, and then everybody uploaded 2 minutes of how they wanted to pitch themselves. And we put it into a database. We gave all the CEOs access to that database before they went home on the holiday leave, but in between the 2 semesters. We also gave all the students the DISC behavioral assessment of their classmates, and then finally we gave them the voting preferences of their students. When those CEOs came back in the spring break, what we did was we had the first ever Buccino Leadership Institute draft. And so they got to draft, just like you would in a fantasy football draft, from first round to 10 round. They got to draft their classmates. Now, we didn't do this in front of the whole class. It was just the CEOs. But it was fascinating to see how they went through that draft process and why they made the decisions that they made. One interesting anecdote is that you would think that as a sophomore, they would choose familiarity. They would choose their buddies in their own specific cohort. Not one of the 7 first-round draft picks was picking a person from their own cohort. So if you were a business person, you were picking a nurse or a comm arts student. That blew me away, and it was a fascinating exercise to go through. And so those sophomores are now in charge of executing their plan for the rest of the semester. It's a fantastic leadership development. Our freshmen are doing something very similar to last time. So when I talk about experiential opportunities, you're not going to get this anyplace else in the country. All right, so how do you get in? There's a couple of, I get this question all the time from folks because there's not a centralized application system to get into the institute. So what happens is step number one is you need to get accepted into Seton Hall University. Once that happens, your GPA and your SAT will be bounced off a minimum criteria. You can see that selection criteria at the bottom. And you'll notice that the selection criteria differs by which college or school at the university is making those choices. So if you are a business student, you would have to have a minimum of a 3.6 or a 1320 on your SAT or a 28 on your ACT in order to get sent an application. Once you get sent an application, you fill it out. Those are usually almost always paper or computer-based, where you submit your application. Then you will be given, if you make it to the next round after the application phase, you'll be given an opportunity, most likely, to interview. Those interviews can either be on campus or via remote. And then those folks are selected. And so that's how you get in. Another question I often get is, are there other opportunities to get in if I don't get in after that initial freshman year? And so because we believe that the importance of this comprehensive program, it's a 4-year program, what we do is we have a limited sophomore entry. And how we determine those slots is based off of the melt that happens with our freshman leaders. So last year, for example, we brought in 86 students on the freshmen. For a variety of reasons, we had 12 slots available. And so we opened up, when we came back for the first semester for the sophomores, we opened up 12 slots for those folks to join. So that's another opportunity. I will say it's a tougher road to hoe as a sophomore because you have to do double duty. You have to do all the requirements of freshmen and sophomores. It's a lot, but we have motivated students that can do it. And I can tell you that the 12 sophomores that entered our program this year were complete value adds to our program. So I'm really glad we have that vehicle. All right. So hopefully you learned a lot about the Buccino Leadership Institute. This is all my contact information. I recommend that you take a look at us on social media. We have a lot of content on our website, on Seton Hall's website, /leadership, and also follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Thanks a lot.